welcome to our podcast to KAN. And here are our hosts, Axel Bautista and Kimberly Tamayo. We're going to be talking about, our main question is going to be, are minorities free today? Let's go with you, Axel.
All right. So I believe minorities are considered free today. In fact, there are some cases in which the majority okay, before we begin, let's define the majority in this case. What would you consider majority, Kimberly?
White people.
Just white people in general,
white,
or white
Caucasian
males?
Men.
Men.
Yes.
Okay, so would you consider white females as a minority?
They're like, if there was like a hierarchy, I feel like the men would be number one, the white men, and then number two, the white women.
Okay. So we got that down. So I believe, yes, I feel like minorities are equal to the majority today, but there are even cases in which the majority, the white males, are actually in fact in a disadvantage, and these minorities have.
And why is that?
Okay, I'll give you a start. So right now, okay, so let's get this out of the way. Wage gap, women wage gap, big discussion.
Yeah.
It's like the fact that everyone throws around is that women make or earn 79 cents to every dollar a man makes.
All right, can I say something to that?
Okay. Oh wait, no. Let me finish. Well, Equal Pay Act in 1963 makes it illegal to pay women and men differently in same positions. You know, first of all, like, okay, if you're gonna pay women less, why not just hire all women? And that famous statistic of the 79 cents actually comes up when they measure the average of when they measure the medium of all women's positions and all men's positions. Mm-hmm. You're not gonna get accurate results with that, because what takes into account a lot, it's not really if they get paid less or more. It's all up to their choice. Women tend to go with jobs that have more flexible schedules. Mm-hmm. Meanwhile, men are more willing to go with jobs that have stricter schedules. So the statistic usually does not take into account the occupation, position, education, or hours worked per week. Mm-hmm. Even a feminist organization, American Association of University Women, reveals that the gap actually shrinks down to 6.6 cents. And even then, this gap is only factored due to life choices. Mm-hmm. The reason why this argument of the whole, like, the medium wages of women and the medium wages of men does not make sense and should not be considered as, like, a true valid statement, because in the top 5 highest paying majors, only women outrepresent men in one of these. And in the top 5 least paying college majors, only women represent 4 out of 5 of these as the majority. Mm. So it doesn't make sense to just get all the women jobs and find the average and then compare it to all the men's jobs and get the average. In that case, the wage gap is not real.
Okay. Well, I searched up, I investigated, and on average, let's say, I'm more talking about race and gender in this one.
You can go ahead.
On average, black women in the U.S. are paid 39% less than white men and 21% less than white women. Mm-hmm. So for every, like, $1 that the white man makes, the black woman gains 61 cents, which is 39% less. So I don't know how. That's a wage. That's pretty far. That's pretty far.
That's given.
And women, in all, like, this is not the race part. Like, women in all earned about 79 cents for every $1 earned by men.
Okay.
So there is a pretty big.
Does that take into account, like, positions, hours worked, or is it just like a study? Okay.
Study.
Well.
Or.
I'll let you finish.
The median salary for men and women with the same job and qualifications, women earn 98 cents for every $1.
All right. Okay. So my response to that, ThoughtCo, I found a source, ThoughtCo, that talks about racial minority groups in the U.S. and how they're represented. So actually, would you consider Asian Americans as a minority?
Yeah.
Okay. So most Asian American sorry, give me a second here. Asian Americans stand out as a minority group, but have excelled beyond the mainstream in educational attainment and socioeconomic status. So Asian Americans have a higher household incomes than Americans generally, and they also have higher rates of educational attainment. So as seeing Asians as a minority, I don't think that goes for 100%. Although you may consider some groups, for example, like Pacific Islander and Filipino, if you take Asians as a whole, I feel like they are doing very well. Also, black businessmen. Black businesses are booming. Blacks have a long tradition of military service, with black veterans amounting to 2 million in 2010, and African Americans graduate in high school about the same rate as Caucasians do overall. In places such as New York City, black immigrants lead immigrants from other racial groups into earning high school diplomas. So, in my point of view, these minorities are not seen as less than. Although they have, I do admit that they have, experienced discrimination over the past, hundreds years and like since the beginning of the United States. I feel like now more than ever, these people are given the opportunities and the rights to be equal. So, of course, we have, the Civil Rights Act and all that. And even then, would you consider like LGBT people like as well as like a minority?
I guess.
Because even then, we fought back against that in 2013. The Defense of Marriage.
Yeah.
Let me finish. The Defense of Marriage Act allowing for homosexual couples to receive the same rights as heterosexual couples.
Yes.
And in 2015, as we all know, gay marriage was made legal in all 50 states.
Yeah.
So they are given the rights. They are given the opportunity. Now, it's not, it's up to the person themselves if they're gonna excel.
Yeah. I know what to say. I know what to say about that. Like,
take your time.
It's kind of like what happened during, like, the whole Industrial Revolution thing. Like, immigrants came, or like the Reconstruction, I guess. Immigrants came from like different countries, right? And then they were saying that they were lazy and all that stuff. And it's kind of like that, like with the LGBTQ community, like. There's rights that protect them or stuff like that. Like, they could get married now. But does that really stop some, like, dude or woman or whatever, whoever, to not to reject them from a certain job position because they are gay? Or because, or like that one incident where this couple wanted to get a cake, like a cake made for like their wedding, and that person was like, no, I don't like gay people. I'm not gonna make a cake for your gay wedding and all that shit. And all that stuff. Whoops. So yeah, like there's rights, just like when the emancipation happened, but white people were still like they're made black codes. So that's kind of like right now.
Yeah, of course. Are you done? Okay, yeah. So with black codes, of course, during that time period, there was a lot of racial prejudice against those people. And of course, over time, as it moves on, we were able to make progress. We reintroduced the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment. And even then, there's like the Civil Rights Act of 1875 that only solidified the rights for these people. Going back to what you said about the gay couple and the cake and all that, that's a whole different conversation for another day. But essentially, where I see that point of view, that man had a business. He can conduct his business the way he wants to. You can always refuse the right. You have, as a business owner, you have the right to refuse. What's it called? Service to others. And in this case, this man, I think he was Muslim, right? Yeah, it was a Muslim bakery, whatever. He had the right to refuse to this gay couple, but in the long run, that's gonna affect him. Because, like, he loses customers. It's up to him as a business owner. Yeah. Because, in the end, who's it really affecting? I feel like it affects more the businessman, since he wants the customer, he wants the business, he wants the money. But, slowly he is going to die out, because the more people he's going to end up refusing, they're just going to move on to other bakeries. So, that's just how the country works. Either you got to stick to your ideals, or you got to stick to, what works for the people.
Or progression, maybe.
Exactly. But the man, the bakery or the baker always had the right to refuse. Going back to whole about not wanting, or not accepting people for job positions or even like education, sometimes. So we have the idea of like white privilege this, white privilege that. But I believe white privilege does actually nothing good for either side. You tell white kids in hopes that they feel bad and are sorry for the privilege, but instead you give them like a false sense of enlightenment. And for minority students who supposedly don't have this privilege, they now feel bad and inherit this minority mindset or this victim mentality. But in reality, when it comes to like colored students and college acceptance and jobs, if you are qualified, or even like, for example, like there are a lot of exceptions when it comes to colleges. Like if you reach within 25th percentile and they take into account like your family income and like where you come from and how you what's it called? You present yourself, you know, they will look fondly of you. And you know, colleges like nowadays would like gladly take any colored student who's like at least the minimum qualified, because of course wanting to because colleges and even job positions like big companies and all that, they very much value race and diversity.
We'll be back shortly, but for now we'd like to thank our sponsor SeatGeek for making today's episode possible. Use discount code KAN50 to save 50% or more with your next purchase at SeatGeek. And let's go back to Axel with his...
To me.
Oh, okay. Let's go to Kimberly.
Okay.
Wow, way to steal the show.
So now we're going to talk about racial microaggressions and prison system and suicide rates. All right. So what is racial microaggressions? It's many well-intentioned whites consciously believe in and profess equality, but unconsciously act in a racist manner, particularly in ambiguous situations. Okay. So, like, there's three types. There's verbal, nonverbal, and environment. A verbal way of a racial microaggression is if someone, let's say, was a Spanish speaker, first language, and someone talks to them in English, and they say to the Spanish person, "Oh, you speak good English." That's a racial microaggression. A nonverbal example is when it's usually how do I say it? Usually like, hold on, I'm trying to think of the word.
You're arguing against me.
I know, but I'm trying to think of the word. Oh, associated. It's usually associated with like black men. So let's say a white woman is walking down the street and a black man is coming towards her, like not towards her, but like walking in the opposite direction as the white woman. The white woman would usually clutch her purse tightly. And an environmental microaggression would be symbols like the Confederate flag or using American Indian mascots like the Redskins. People may think they're not being biased or prejudiced because they don't think they are, or they're not aware of it, or they think of themselves as moral people. That's literally all I have.
So when it comes to microaggressions, I feel like it's not simply due to race. I feel like there has to be, there's a lot more that comes with it. If I'm a store owner and say the area I live in gets shoplifted a lot by specifically like black teens, if I see a normal black teen that's well-dressed and he comes into the store, you know, I won't bother. But if I see a black teen with a bad attitude come into my store with saggy pants and, you know, he's not dressed correctly, then of course I'm going to be a little bit aware and, like, you know, just, like, keep my eye out for him.
What about, like, a white dude with baggy pants and a bad attitude?
Yeah, you know, although if he comes in with a bad attitude or he's clearly, like, on something, then, yeah, I'm going to keep my eyes peeled, you know? Mm-hmm. It's just, like, a normal precaution. Simply because simply because the man is black or he's Latino, I don't think that's enough reasoning for someone to clench their bag. There has to be like prior experiences or there has to be specific with the black man that comes to it. So, you know, like I said, for example, you know, bad attitude, well dressed.
Okay, like for example, I have a story. There was this man, hold on, I gotta go back to it. Okay, so the example is there was an Asian American and an African American. They were on a business trip. They were on a plane, and they were one of the first ones to get on, so they had a front seat. Mm-hmm. And later on, once the plane started to get full, the flight attendant had like 2 or 4 white men that were like, they couldn't be seated because there was like it was either all the way in the back or all the way in the front. And the flight attendant told the Asian American and the African American to move. Unconsciously, she was, being racist.
Okay, was this act like staged or was it?
No, it was real.
Oh, okay.
It was real. It was like an actual story by Daryl Wing Sue.
Okay.
So yeah, and they were like, "Why are you gonna move us? Like, we got here first. Does it really matter?" And then they went to the back, and the white man sat in front, and then they asked later on, "Why did you move us? Are you like racist?" And she got really mad. She was like, "I am not racist. You're too sensitive."
Mm-hmm.
But clearly there was something there, because why couldn't she just sit the white men in the back instead of making them move, who were already settled there? Move.
Okay. So that case, of course, I wouldn't like that to happen. That's bad. No one wants, any sort of like, I don't want anyone to judge me for my race, for how I look, but in that case, I feel like that story is very anecdotal. Right here, our topic, our debate is more dependent on facts, dependent on statistics and all that. So if you give me a story, like, okay, yeah, bad story, next time just don't go to that airline or report that flight attendant if she's acting like that. Because there's other ways around. If someone's gonna, call me racial slurs for no goddamn reason, then of course I have the right to go report that to someone, report that to a manager, so what justice is given to them. So a lot of these stories are very anecdotal.
But they happen.
They happen, but I feel like there are other ways. But I feel like it's enforced. Like for the flight attendant, you're a flight attendant. Your primary, Your primary reasoning or your primary, tool is customer service. You're supposed to give customers like the upright most respect.
So why did they treat the Asian American and African
That's
American
why.
with
So
respect?
that lady specifically probably wasn't outright. So if these men could possibly report to the airline, be like, "Hey, this flight attendant did this, this, and that," well, okay, proper justice would have been done.
Do you think that would have happened though?
Hold on. I think it would have been wrong. It would have been wrong if they did report and talk to someone, and the lady just goes away scot-free. Then there we really do have a problem. But I believe in today's world and how there's laws and like how companies really want to keep up their prestige and like how they look to the public, they wouldn't let that slide. So if something like that happens, consequences are going to happen to those people.
Or they could cover it up.
No, why would they want to cover it up?
Because they don't want the type of attention. They don't want to be known as someone that's racist.
And how they cover it up? By getting the person fired.
But
so
then that's
it goes
gonna,
in the past.
How is that gonna get covered if she gets fired?
She gets fired.
It's gonna be out in the public.
No.
So they're gonna be like, "Oh, well, how do we know that none of your other flight attendants
It's gonna be
racist?
out in the flight, nevertheless. And then the company could always just speak out and be like, "Hey, this flight attendant wasn't right for the job. She didn't follow our qualifications. Therefore, she lost her job." So it goes to show that us as a company, we care about how we treat the customers. We care about how we make sure that there's nothing, that people aren't judged racially. Nothing of that. Of course, yeah. So they want to keep that high prestige. So they wouldn't let that slide.
Yeah.
All right. To finish up, I feel like I have a survey called "King's Dream Remains an Elusive Goal." Well, never mind. Hold on. Many Americans see racial disparities by Pew Research Center. Though, this source was mainly to combat my argument, I did find some stuff that did support my argument. For example, large minorities of blacks, specifically 73%, and whites, 81%, says that the two races get along very well or pretty well. I think that's major strides compared to like from back in the day, how you have
You guys spit on your mouth.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Why you gotta point that to me now? Whatever. And okay, although you may believe that there are cases in which minorities are less than or they're not equal to, I believe, white males also have their fair share of like disadvantages. For example, in 2017, the American Foundation of Suicide Prevention concluded that whites make up the majority of suicide rates, actually white middle-aged men.
But what does that have to do with
Hold on. These would be 69.57%. In 2017, men died by suicide 3.54 times more often than women. It goes to show that, although these people are equal, these people are, like, minorities are not equal, of course, white people do suffer in certain cases.
That I don't know how that connects to anything we were talking about.
What do you mean it doesn't connect?
Like,
I feel because
suicide could be for many different reasons. It doesn't have to be racial.
No, but I'm saying that, like, okay, although there is this quote unquote white privilege, why is the majority of suicide rates like white middle-aged men? Aren't they the majority? Aren't they the ones that are doing just fine and great in life? They have no reason to commit suicide. So it goes to show, like, okay, there is stuff going on in life. They have their problems the same way that everyone else has their problems. So I don't think we should put them, like, I'm concluding right here. I don't feel like white privilege is real. It's not something that you should just, I mentioned this before, but it's not something you throw out and you tell people. You tell white kids so they feel sorry and are sorry for their privilege, but instead they feel better. They're like, oh wow, I have this privilege that other people don't have. Although they don't want to feel good about it, it's just in their mind that, like, okay, I have this privilege, I have this privilege, I have this privilege. Meanwhile, for minority students, you're giving them this this minority mindset or victim mentality. So they're gonna think later on in life, like, oh, I can't apply for this job, oh, I can't into this school because I'm black, because I'm Latino, because I'm Asian. No, we don't want to do that. They have the same rights as everyone else in this country, and they have the same opportunities. So if they fight for it and they strive for it and they have qualifications or even like anywhere near the area.
Even if they have qualifications.
So, in conclusion, for me, white privilege should not be a thing that it should be taught and told to students.
Yes. Okay.
It does not benefit anyone.
No, I agree with that.
Okay.
But does it exist?
No, it does not exist. I clearly show that these people have rights. There is no women wage gap.
I had to
Black businesses are booming. What's it called? Asian Americans are doing very financially and educationally. So, the statistics show. What do the statistics show before?
Okay.
Rather than anecdotal.